this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. It's another go at one of these care collab videos, and this time we're looking at Laelia or Cattleya purpurata, depending on what takes your fancy. Strictly speaking, it's now a Cattleya. It has been officially reclassified, but most people still know it as Laelia purpurata, and most of the nurseries that sell it are probably going to sell it under that name anyway, but strictly speaking, it's Cattleya. The problem with the Laelias was their origins. It seems that you will find some Laelias are still called Laelias, and it's mainly, well, I think it's almost strictly limited to those that come from the Mexico area, whereas those that came from down in Brazil and surrounding countries got moved to Cattleya. But at the same time, some of the Cattleyas got moved somewhere else. It's all good fun, isn't it? Anyway, you choose what you want to call it in your grow space. If you ever take it to a show, I suggest you put the name right, because it could be checked. Anyway, I've got two. Before we get going, the names of the other participants in this particular care collab will be a pop-up on the screen. I'm not reading them out because there's too many. I'll be here all day. Plus I'd have to write them down and bring them into the grow room. So they will be on the screen. I'm quite happy to type them in. And also the links to those channels will be in my video description. So you can go there, click on any of those, and have a look at the other videos, and if you feel like it, subscribe to those channels as well. So and there'll be a big list this time round. There's quite a few channels taking part. Now Laelia purpurata, quite honestly, has probably got more named varieties than any other Cattleya type. It's just so infinitely variable as far as the blooms are concerned that many have actually been given variety names. I mean, you can start off with almost pure white, and then as far as the lip is concerned, you can have red, pink, and then it goes into the purples, and then you can take the sepals with you as far as the colours are concerned. You can have patterning on them, and then you've got the petals and sepals matching up with the lip. The colours are infinitely variable, and as a consequence there are many named varieties. So that's part one of why it's a popular orchid. Part two is the mass of Cattleya hybrids that are often that deep sort of royal purple colour with the large blooms. You can almost guarantee that somewhere in the background is Laelia purpurata. It's extensively been used in hybridizations through the years. So pretty important plant, really, Anyway, as I said, the Laelia purpurata or Cattleya purpurata mainly comes from Brazil, I think down in the south or that sort of area. Consequently, you can sort of determine some of its climate from that. As far as looking after this is concerned in my environment, my minimum winter temperature is 15 degrees, so that's my minimum nighttime temperature. I wouldn't suggest going much lower than that. The problem you'll have is that if those low temperatures are part of your winter also has short day lengths. You're going to stall the plant. Whatever it's doing, it'll just stop. It'll just slow right down or stop, because you're getting it too cold and it's not getting the light it needs. So I wouldn't let it get too cold in the winter, and if you don't have any artificial lights, it's going to need the best light you can give it through those months. This is a highlight orchid. Out of the Cattleya alliance types, I would put this up the high end, probably bordering on Vanderlight. But certainly very good light for this one. It needs that bright light. And it also has a few funny quirks. Under normal circumstances, it will produce its new growth through the summer, grow them on, and it needs to drink. When those new growths are pushing on, sort of 6 inches plus, it's going to use water and feed. So, you know, push it hard during that period, get that new growth up as large as you can. And it will mature into winter, basically, when it will just finish growing. And then under normal circumstances, you may or may not have the sheath at this point. Most times you will. Not necessarily any buds. And the plant, when that growth is matured, growth or growths if you're lucky and have more than one, when it's matured, it's going to rest. The plant will just stop. Yeah? And basically it's waiting for a change to start to produce those buds. That change is normally an increase in day length and temperature. In other words, you're coming out of winter time. And that's when you'll start to see the buds form. So while it's not doing anything, I wouldn't suggest you stonk up the water and the feed, because what's it going to do with it? But once you see the buds, you can start again. Yeah, and sort of give those a bit of a kick. You might get a few extra blooms, you never know. And also, when it finishes blooming, it'll take another little rest. Yeah, you're only talking a few weeks or so, month at the most, I'd have said. So don't go mad. And always, with Cattleya types, if you're giving them their bit of a rest, don't let the pseudobulb shrivel to any extent. Because with Cattleya types, they will very rarely plump up. And we'll get on to that. Right, so there's a bit of care. High temperatures, as far as most orchids are concerned, much above 28-29 degrees, and they'll start to object. And they object by closing their pores to stop the moisture loss, which is in effect stopping their normal processing. So they will, again, have a pause point, but normally it's only for part of a day. But keep stopping and starting like that doesn't do them any good. So if you can, don't let them get too hot. And if you've got temperatures that you can't keep down, then get that air movement going. Yeah, okay. So highlight, drink when they're growing, and 2 little rest periods that they ought to take. It's part of the plant's process. Right, I've got 2. Basically I did a lot of work. I saw some blooms, you know, somebody else's orchid, and I thought, oh, I like that one, we'll have some of that. And I went through the varieties that I could find, looking at the blooms, and chose 2 that I liked a lot. And I had a wish list in those days. And basically one of them, well, actually my daughter found it in the rummage bin at Malvern from Ecuagenera. If you've ever bought plants from Ecuagenera at a show, at the start of the show everything's nice and neat and tidy, but by the mid-afternoon point it looks like somebody's thrown all the plants up in the air and they've just landed wherever. It's a rummage bin. Hannah found one for me, and she found the variety atropurpurea, which was the first one I got. Didn't have very good roots, but it had some new growth, so I took it. And then not that long ago I saw the other one that I had on my list, which was striata, so that's a new plant. Now my original one, the atropurpurea, is in a bad way. This is in a bad way because it objected to a root treatment to get rid of scale, and it's taken it down quite badly. But it's going to survive. It's not like it's going to be lost or anything like that. But you can see leaves have desiccated quite badly. They're all quite a pale colour at the moment, so they are eventually going to drop off, and that will leave it with very few. Last time I repotted it, because I had to get it out of that media basically and give it a fresh start, I actually split the plant in 2. So it's 2 smaller pieces now. So the chances of it blooming on the next new growth that matures are relatively slim, because the 2 plants are now smaller divisions than it was before. But as far as this piece here ends up at this growth, that's its latest one, that's still got a relatively green leaf. It does have a sheath. I doubt if it will bloom personally. I really doubt if it will bloom. I doubt if it's got the strength. It's as simple as that. And then the other piece, which was a smaller piece, that comes across here. The latest lead had to be cut off because it rotted. which meant that this is now its front runner, a desiccated pale leaf, with this one a bit farther back, and it has a new growth. So that smaller part has already started a new growth. It's quite immature at the moment, it's only just started. At some point down the line, that piece will now grow some new roots. The other larger piece has no new growth on it yet, and I might have to wait some time for that one, because this is effectively its latest matured new growth. But having disturbed it, you know, it's difficult to say exactly what that one's going to do. But it was chosen for the blooms, and that they are, in my opinion, one of the best varieties. They are quite spectacular. So that's that one. And then this one was acquired not that long ago, so this is a newer one. And watch for this. If you've got Cattleyas, you can see it in several places. The last video I did, yesterday's in fact, was discussing humidity levels that can get too high relative to the temperature. And this is what you'll get. It's effectively a black sooty mould. If you wet your finger, in most cases it wipes off, but go steady. You know, really high humidity is not ideal. They don't need it. You know, 60% is 60 to 70% for Cattleya types is normally fine, but you need to maintain it at the higher temperatures and keep the air moving. Right, so this one again got split into two pieces, basically to get it in the pot. Otherwise it would have been hanging over the side. Now on this piece here, the previous leaf was this one. That's the one I believe that bloomed. This was bought in bloom, so I have seen the blooms on this. This is its latest new growth. This is not mature yet. It hasn't reached its full thickness, swelling. However, the leaf has probably finished growing. It's a nice, you know, longer than anything the plant has had before. So it's a good, strong new growth. That doesn't mean to say it's going to bloom. No sheath as yet. Yeah? Under normal circumstances, the sheath will grow with the leaf. It almost looks like it's going to have two leaves, and then one of them just keeps going and becomes a leaf, and the other one sits behind. So the fact that there isn't one, I doubt if it's going to get one. But nonetheless, good new growth and some root production going on. The other piece round here, this damage was on it when I got it, and I saw it before I got it. Not only is it a damaged pseudobulb, it's a very strange shape. So something went a bit wrong at that point in the plant's history. Anyway, this one has also pushed up a new growth, which is not mature, it's maturing. This has still got some growing to do, so this probably the leaf will still get a little bit longer, and certainly the bulb will plump up. And again, no sign of any sheath, and it probably won't have any. So I've probably got to wait another full cycle on this particular plant to get the blooms back. And that's basically the root disturbance, and well, basically just that. The root disturbance has meant that it's now two small divisions rather than one larger plant. And sometimes, well, in my case, I just have to put up with that because I need it in this sort of size pot. Yeah, so that's what has to happen basically. So that's my two. This one is in a state of recovery, which it will, well, one piece is definitely going to recover because of the new growth. The other piece hasn't started that new growth yet, but it does have one green leaf on it. So it can sort of help feed itself. This one needs to push this growth on to get another green leaf. How long these older leaves are going to last, I don't know. You can see the pseudobulbs are badly distorted. This is because basically the roots were lost. So it had nothing coming in from the base of the plant for a considerable amount of time. So that's what did the damage there. This one, I'm quite pleased with the two new growths. They pushed on nicely. So and the plant now has room for the next full growing cycle without having to be disturbed, and possibly even two growing cycles depending on the angle the next new growths come out. So yeah, as far as looking after these are concerned, the most important thing is to keep that light high. And it's probably far more important for that light to be high as the growths mature with their sheath, and then into that little rest period, yeah, and then possibly, if you can, a bit of a rise in temperature, and either longer day lengths or a bit brighter light should trigger the buds to come in that sheath. And then again, another little rest after the blooms, just give it time to breathe. And at such times, or perhaps a bit before, somewhere around that time, your new growth should start. And again, you start the cycle. And it's a strange cycle because its growing season starts late. It doesn't start in early spring so that it's got the whole summer. It starts later and then carries on maturing into the winter. And then it's at the end of the winter it has that first little rest. It's a rewarding Cattleya. It's large blooms, fragrant, yeah, and quite honestly, if you've got the light, it's pretty easy to grow. You know, I mean, you can mess it up, as I have with this one, but that, you know, that was a mistake rather than normal care, if you know what I mean. That was a treatment that went wrong. But it's a rewarding plant. I like it a lot. Some people have whole collections of types of purpurata and purpurata crosses. You know, they just home in on that. Very large, fragrant, rewarding blooms, so you can see why. But anyway, that's my take on it. I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.